All right, we're live. So I'm going to talk about the challenge this week, which is supposed to be the physical challenge, but it certainly seems like more of a mental challenge. Depending on how hungry you get, it might be more physical. But the challenge of the week is to eat only your ideal diet. And when I say that, I have to explain it to anybody who is thinking like I'm thinking. Check the text, please. Uh, and they might be thinking, well, my ideal diet is pizza for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I love it. No, what I mean is what is healthiest for you, what you know that you really should be eating. And that is up to you. So some of you, I'm sure, are either avoiding this talk and going to watch it years from now, or are coming to this talk to listen, expecting me to talk about the specific food that you should be eating, and that will be 0% of this talk. I don't know what food you should be eating. I know what feels right for me sometimes. I definitely don't know what feels right for you. I will say that this talk is going to be more about like using diet as an opportunity to be disciplined, be mindful, to live the way that you want to live. Now, eating is a very big part of life for most of us. I love eating. I do it several times a day. And it's kind of like breathing and sleeping and drinking water. It's like if you have the mindset of being super present while you're doing it, then that is wonderful. That's going to be so powerful for you. But I'll get more into that later on. The idea of discipline, I talk about this with diet, but it could be with anything. Everybody knows something that you should be doing that you're not doing that is good for you. And if we take diet, for example, what you should be doing is eating more vegetables, less ice cream, or whatever the thing is that you eat too much of. And you know that. And when I say ideal diet, I do mean you are only eating the good stuff and not eating the bad stuff. So that is what you're supposed to do for this entire week. I'm not trying to pretend that you're going to do that for your whole life. So I will tell you, several times I have set a New Year's resolution that sounds something like, I'm only eating vegan this year. It's going to be so like black and white. I'm dead set on it. Zero cheating at all. And the first time I did this, literally the first thing I ate was a piece of chocolate that I forgot to read the label on, and it had milk in it. And my first thought was, well, this year's shot. And then I reminded myself, the thing that I like to tell students all the time with goals and New Year's resolutions is, at some point you are probably going to fail if it's something that you're trying to do for an entire year. It's very difficult to be perfect. Whether you fail on the first day, which is really in some ways kind of an ideal situation, or you fail much further down the line, your gut reaction might be to just give up. And that's when you know that you're onto something good, something important, and something that you will really get a lot of discipline out of. If the first thing you want to do is quit and give up, then you should really double down on it and say, nope, I'm just going to jump right back on that path that I was on. So I did that today. I woke up this morning and I was like, I mean, I am generally very solid with my diet. I eat a decent range of things, but during the week I'm totally like vegan and healthy, no processed foods. And I abstained from eating a Starburst today after lunch because I thought I'm going to come to class today and be able to tell everybody that I stayed with my ideal diet today. But then I ate a small cookie without thinking about it, and then that's all shot. And then instead of just eating 10 more cookies, I thought, nope, I'm going to do the thing that I'm going to talk about later and not just completely forget about it. And that is, for most of us, I think, when the ideal diet or when discipline falls apart, is when we have that momentary lapse of awareness or mindfulness, and we just went back into our old ways and our old patterns. We succumbed to the temptation of the moment without remembering what we were really trying to get. And we mess up. And then discipline does not mean we're perfect. I mean, that would be lovely, but it's not realistic. What's realistic is you get right back on it. So that's one side of it, the discipline of your diet. You get to decide what you want to do. I suggest that you get into a really great state of mind. Maybe it's after meditation. Maybe it's like you're really motivated at the beginning of the year and you say to yourself, this is what I'm going to do, and you stick to it. And when you are not in your greatest mindset, you still stick to what you decided when you were in a great mindset. I want to talk about our meals on retreat. So some of you guys were on retreat this year, and we had this really wonderful opportunity. Some people, I think, don't like it, but when they actually get into it, they really enjoy it. First of all, the food, and this is not my decision, this is the way that they feed us on retreat, is all vegetarian food. It's a Zen retreat center, and Zen monks don't like eating animals, so we eat just vegetarian food. And it's quite well prepared. I like it just fine. And it's all you can eat, which is all I really care about. It's important on retreats to have lots and lots of food. But some years, like for the internal retreat, we will very often do a silent day, at least 24 hours where you're totally silent. All your meals are in silence. At this retreat, it wasn't that. I did yell at people to try to have mindful conversations, but you're talking, that's okay. And there is always this opportunity to be mindful as you're eating, and that's great. When you are, I never let you eat anything in the dojo, but retreat's kind of like an extension of the dojo. So if you're in that moment and you're like, I'm going to eat as if this is a technique that I'm practicing, like I'm super mindful about the details of what I'm doing. That's a wonderful way to do it. And there is this part of retreat at the end of every meal where you clean your own bowls. This is a kind of traditional way of cleaning, and I've seen it at a couple of different Zen centers where you're not just scrubbing it with soap and water like you normally do. You just use water, and in this case, you will go get a bowl. You make sure you take your cleanest bowl because you don't want to spread around the food. Your cleanest bowl, and you go fill it with some warm water, and then you take it back to where you were sitting, and you kind of scrub out that bowl and your utensils, and then you put that water into the next bowl, and you dry the first one out, and then you wash your next bowl, and you're just using your fingers, and you just repeat that until you got all of your bowls clean, and then you dump it out. And most of us, like at home, I always clean my dishes like that, whatever I cooked with, I clean right away. Because I don't want to be eating thinking, oh, I got to clean those dishes after I'm done. Because cleaning dishes for me, as I'm sure it occurs for most of you in the same way, is not a super enjoyable thing. It's like I would rather be eating or sleeping. That cleaning dishes in between is the part that sucks. So here there is this very purposeful, mindful kind of celebration of cleaning and being very aware of exactly what you're doing, not trying to rush through it. It would be basically impossible to rush through cleaning with the logistics of how you're cleaning in that way. You might be able to rush through it at home. You just turn the faucet on full blast and just clean it as fast as you can and scrub everything and just like be done with it. Or just throw it in the dishwasher and say, see you later. But you're kind of forced to be in the present. And this is wonderful. So I'm sure most of you did not expect me to be talking about cleaning the dishes as part of this talk, but it is part of it, right? And your conversation is part of it. The first time that I can remember hearing some advice about mindful eating was a documentary about John Lennon. And there was a scene where he and Yoko Ono, I think they were doing like it was a hunger fast, or I think they were staying in bed for like a year. I don't remember what it was. But they gave this interview. They were talking about how when you're eating, you should just love the food that you're eating. They're talking about eating sausages, and it's like as you're eating the sausage, you love the sausage. And like that really helps you to savor every bite. And I listened to that and I thought, that's great advice. And the next thing that I ate, I think was the next morning, I ate a bowl of cereal. And every bite, I just looked at it and I loved it. And then I ate it and I chewed it. I actually chewed my food for maybe the first time in my life. And it tasted so good and the texture was incredible. It was such a full experience. And I would be lying if I said that I do that every time, but whenever I choose to do it or whenever I remember to do it, it's amazing. And that's much better than having to have like a really expensive, fancy meal like every once in a while, and you're forced to enjoy it because you paid so much for it. You could eat cereal out of the box and still really enjoy every single bite if you're present for it. So that's what this reading is from Peace is Every Step. I did read, I think, this same passage months ago. So if you remember it, too bad. Just listen to it as if you're listening to it for the first time. So this is a book by Thich Nhat Hanh. He did pass away within the last year or two. So listen to his words carefully. This chapter is called Eating Mindfully. A few years ago, I asked some children, what is the purpose of eating breakfast? One boy replied, to get energy for the day. Another said, the purpose of eating breakfast is to eat breakfast. I think the second child is more correct. The purpose of eating is to eat. Eating a meal in mindfulness is an important practice. We turn off the TV, put down the newspaper, and work together for 5 or 10 minutes, setting the table, finishing whatever needs to be done. During these few minutes, we can be very happy. When the food is on the table and everyone is seated, we practice breathing. So this is like how they actually eat in the monastery. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile 3 times. We can recover ourselves completely after 3 breaths like this. Then we look at each person as we breathe in and out in order to be in touch with ourselves and everyone at the table. We don't need 2 hours to see another person. If we are really settled within ourselves, we only need to look for 1 or 2 seconds, and that is enough to see. I think that if a family has 5 members, only about 5 or 10 seconds are needed to practice this looking and seeing. Of course, you are allowed to do that more if you want to, but 5 or 10 seconds should do it. After breathing, we smile. Sitting at the table with the other people, we have a chance to offer an authentic smile of friendship and understanding. It is very easy, but not many people do it. To me, this is the most important practice. We look at each person and smile at him or her. Breathing and smiling together is a very important practice. If the people in a household cannot smile at each other, the situation is very dangerous. After breathing and smiling, we look down at the food in a way that allows the food to become real. This food reveals our connection with the earth. Each bite contains the life of the sun and the earth. The extent to which our food reveals itself depends on us. We can see and taste the whole universe in a piece of bread. Contemplating our food for a few seconds before eating and eating in mindfulness can bring us much happiness. Having the opportunity to sit with our family and friends and enjoy wonderful food is something precious, something not everyone has. Many people in the world are hungry. When I had a bowl of rice or a piece of bread, I know that I am fortunate, and I feel compassion for all those who have no food to eat and are without friends or family. This is a very deep practice. We do not need to go to temple or church in order to practice this. We can practice it right at our dinner table. Mindful eating can cultivate seeds of compassion and understanding that will strengthen us to do something to help hungry and lonely people be nourished. In order to aid mindfulness during meals, you may like to eat silently from time to time. Your first silent meal may cause you to feel a little uncomfortable, but once you become used to it, you will realize that meals in silence bring much peace and happiness. Just as we turn off the TV before eating, we can turn off the talking in order to enjoy the food and the presence of one another. I do not recommend silent meals every day. Talking to each other can be a wonderful way to be together in mindfulness, but we have to distinguish among different kinds of talk. Some subjects can separate us. For instance, if we talk about other people's shortcomings, the carefully prepared food will have no value if we let this kind of talk dominate our meal. And let's be real. What percentage of your conversations throughout the day, and especially at mealtime, are not about somebody's shortcomings? Maybe it's the person you're eating with, maybe it's somebody at work who you just hate, but it's not very helpful for mindfulness. When instead we speak about things that nourish our awareness of the food and our being together, we cultivate the kind of happiness that is necessary for us to grow. If we compare this experience with the experience of talking about other people's shortcomings, we will realize that the awareness of the piece of bread in our mouth is much more nourishing. It brings life in and makes life real. So, while eating, we should refrain from discussing subjects that can destroy our awareness of our family and the food, but we should feel free to say things that can nourish awareness and happiness. For instance, if there is a dish that you like very much, you can notice if other people are also enjoying it. And if one of them is not, you can help him or her appreciate the wonderful dish prepared with loving care. My mom used to try to do that. If someone is thinking about something other than the good food on the table, such as his difficulties in the office or with friends, he is losing the present moment and the food. You can say, "This dish is wonderful, don't you agree?" to draw him out of his thinking and worries and bring him back to the here and now, enjoying you, enjoying the wonderful dish. You become a bodhisattva, helping a living being become enlightened. Children, in particular, are very capable of practicing mindfulness and reminding others to do the same. There's a whole chapter here about washing dishes too, but I'm going to skip that. I just talked enough about it. So I think that's pretty much, there was one other thing. I was talking to Zelda about this earlier today, and she mentioned the idea of intuitive eating. And this can be a part of the way that you choose to make your ideal diet. Sometimes you can just feel what your body needs and what it doesn't need. Now, this is distinct from, I always eat a cookie at this time of day, and so my brain is tricking my body into thinking that it needs a cookie. Your body does not need a cookie, usually. It might be in need of vegetables or in need of water, or sometimes for some of you, it will feel like it's in need of meat. It's, need the iron or the protein or whatever. So being in touch with your body and recognizing what you need to eat is great. At the very least, you should be able to recognize when you need to eat and when you're eating too much or too little. If you don't recognize that you're eating too much until the meal is over and then you have to roll off of the table, then that's not mindfulness. So this is a really great practice that I am not great at, but I believe that it is possible to be super mindful and know what the right amount of food for you in the moment is, and to know what your body needs and to know when to give it to yourself. So as we meditate today, we're going to do a slightly longer meditation. Try not to just sit there and think about what you're going to eat for dinner tonight. It's going to be tricky. But remember, in the moment, it's the same idea that Thich Nhat Hanh talked about, eating the entire universe in a piece of bread. Every breath that you take when you're sitting is like you are inhaling the entire universe, or like you are inhaling an entire lifetime worth of experience. And if you are present for each bite of food, that's going to help you be present for each inhale and exhale. And if you can do that with the so-called mundane experiences of life of eating or breathing, then you can do it with the other slightly less mundane experiences of life. So sit comfortably. Do a quick review of posture. Make sure you're sitting with your knees even with or underneath your hips. If you're sitting seiza, that's easy. If you're sitting cross-legged, that's fine too. Just make sure that your knees are not sticking way up. Your back is straight, so you want your shoulders rolled back and relaxed with your hands upturned at your hips. Close eyes. Your eyes are upturned gently to the point between the eyebrows. Relax Watch the breath. So we'll actually start with 5 deep breaths to begin this. It'll be a breathing exercise before we do our meditation. So begin with all the breath out. In through the nose. Hold at the top for a few seconds. And out. You can exhale through the nose or the mouth. In from the belly. Hold. Out. In. Hold. Out. In. Hold. Out. Last breath. In. Hold. Finish with a double exhalation. And now let the breath come in by itself. And naturally exhale. When your mind wanders, bring it gently back to the breath. Without judgment, just feel that next breath like it is the most delicious breath of air. Nothing else exists.